For singing with us.
Great, thank you guys for leading us this morning in music, and we are here with just a small group of people, and we're having some technical issues at the beginning, but I think we're okay right now, and so the band's going to come down and join, and we do have a small group of people right here that are going to be listening, and we know that at home you all are listening as well, and so please, right now, before we get into God's Word together, take a moment and gather everyone together, open up a Bible, grab a Bible if you need to, get a piece of paper if you write notes, if you're a child, if you need a place to color, these things to keep us focused during these next few minutes together. And obviously this is the end of a very long week for all of us, isn't it? And in many ways, an extraordinary week that has its unique challenges, and probably like many of you, it's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster for me as well. I mean, I've had times this week where it's just like pure laughter at the chaos, and other times where it's like just tears and so much confusion. You know, I probably spent too much time this week reading the news, too much time on CNN or Fox News, wherever, trying to figure out what in the world is going on. And so I really had to force myself this week to kind of slow down and to just listen to what God is saying to me and what He wants to say to all of you here, but also those who are gathered online with us. And so we have just a few minutes to do that. One of the things that's been on my mind this week is rapid change, right? I mean, if we look at what's happened, the changes have been so rapid. I mean, literally changing from 1 hour to the next, and we don't know what's coming, you know, in the next hour. What is the governor going to say? What is president going to say? We're on kind of pins and needles, and it's been such a rapid change, playing hour by hour, that has been, I think, caused all of us a bit of whiplash. And I think that we feel like, what's the next announcement going to be made? If we look at life, we know there's two kinds of changes that take place. Usually, there's two. One of them is internally kind of driven change. Meaning we see something in our life, we want to lose weight, or we want to, get out of debt, or we want to change a job, or something like that. We're like, okay, that is a motivation that comes from within that says, change, and I'm going to go after it. I'm going to do that. And there's motivation that we need to decide to do something. The other type of change we experience in life is externally forced change, where we didn't choose to do something, we didn't choose to change, and yet we're being forced to change. And we're doing that. There's outside forces that are driving these things, and so what we're experiencing now as a culture and as a whole world is externally forced change. And when we think about externally forced change versus internally driven change, there's a big difference, isn't there? One requires motivation. Like if you're going to do something that you're going to decide to do, you're like, okay, I need to muster up the strength to be able to go after that and do that thing that I want to do, and I'm going to be driven to do that. That requires motivation. Externally forced change doesn't necessarily require motivation. I don't need motivation right now to change. What I need is interpretation. And there's a big difference there, isn't it? If I'm going to do something that I decide to do, it requires motivation to get up in the morning and get going to do it. Externally driven change says, I need to interpret this. I need to understand what's going on around me, especially when we have no control over any of this. What we're experiencing right now is interpretation. We need interpretation. You all here, myself, who's ever watching here, we need to understand what's going on. So we look at our life, we understand what's happening right now. We know this is not the first time, nor will it be the last time that any of us have to experience any sort of externally forced change. And so what we want to do is we want to understand, what does this tell us about life in general? What are we experiencing right now as a culture, as a world that says, what is this telling us about life? How do we make sense of it? Can we make sense of it? Is it even possible to understand and make sense of all that we're going through? So, change is hard enough. Rapid change is more difficult, even harder. And so what I want to do for this morning and for the next couple of weeks is I want us to kind of pull up a little bit and take a breath, breathe, and kind of dig below the surface a little bit and gain some perspective. And I think one of the best places we can gain perspective is from the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, Ecclesiastes is an interesting study, right? And it might be kind of an odd place to kind of go to in times like this. I think that it's naturally kind of go to places where, in Psalms and in places which are fantastic, which provides comfort in times of unknown and fear, and that's a good thing. But Ecclesiastes is going to help us interpret what's going on. and it helps us understand as best we can how we can kind of understand what's going on. And so I want to show a picture on the screen here. This is a picture of my son and I took a trip to Florida in December, and this is a picture from our condo that was on the 23rd floor of the building. And this is in Destin, Florida, and this is an amazing view because you usually don't get a view like this when you're on the beach, right? When you're on the beach, all you see is what's right in front of you. You can see a little bit of the horizon, but from our room, this is taken right from our room, we're literally having a total different perspective of what's going on. We can see the ripples of it. You can't really see it here, but you can see kind of the different depths of the water. You can see someone walking down the beach way down over here and someone way down over here. It's a totally different perspective than when you're actually on the beach, isn't it? And it's a great perspective, and it's a perspective that I think that I need and we all need. So what Ecclesiastes is going to do, essentially, is going to take us up to the 23rd floor of the building. And give us kind of a different perspective, a bigger perspective of life that's all around us. And so Ecclesiastes, we know it's in the wisdom literature. And so it's part of, Psalms and Proverbs and these things in the Old Testament. So if you're looking there in your Bible, you want to turn there. It is, Psalms, Proverbs, and then Ecclesiastes. And so it's a book we don't usually read, at least on a normal basis, but it's tucked right in there before Song of Songs. And so it's wisdom literature. This is going to teach us how to live well, because we need this perspective on how to live a life that's bigger than you. And it's bigger than anything we can experience. And so it's going to help us understand how do we live life in God's world, which He says is good, but in many ways is very much broken. And there's things that are very wrong with the world we live in. Catastrophically wrong at certain times. So here's the big ideas. You can put that up there for me real quick. You can see the big idea is this, that Ecclesiastes is going to give us a perspective on living a life that's bigger than you. And we're going to look at verses 1 through 11 this morning. And so I'm going to read them for us. Ecclesiastes 1, verses 1 through 11. I'll read them for us. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What does man gain by the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes round to the north. Round and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It is already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of latter things yet to be among those who come after. It's a great little poem that the writer of Ecclesiastes begins with. And here's the big idea I want you to take away today. And it says that the sooner we accept our human limitations, the sooner we can start living. And we're going to unpack that this morning of the sooner we can understand our creaturely constraints, that all of us are creaturely constrained by certain things that are common to all of us. This is not about skill, it's not about ability, it's not about talent, it's not about what you have in your bank or what other people have. There are human creaturely constraints that all of us are limited by, and the sooner we accept those things, the sooner we can start living. And in fact, I would say that the Ecclesiastes writer would tell us that that is actually the key to start living. When we understand that we are limited, we are not unlimited, that we have these things, then all of a sudden we can start living. Now, the writer of this book is sometimes attributed to Solomon, King Solomon. That is the most assumed reference to him, but Solomon never references himself in the whole book. There's some good things to make us come to that conclusion, but he says he's the preacher. Great, right? He's got a message to deliver, and he's going to continue to hammer on this main point and begins with this poem. If we looked at the majority of our lives, you and I spend the majority of our lives, though, trying desperately to ignore and deny our creaturely constraints. This is how we spend our life. We spend our life thinking, well, I am unlimited. And the message that we give to our kids and to each other is, you can do anything you want to do. And you are unlimited. You can do anything. Anything is possible when we spoon-feed ourselves a lie. And at the end, that can lead to deep despair and actually more frustration. And so we think, if I just have, this new promotion, I will have a life of significance. If I have the church grow, I will leave a legacy. If I get a new house, this one that's broken down, I will be more satisfied in life. If I get another degree, I will have more significance. I'll feel better about myself. All these things, if I have more money. And all along the way, you and I are trying to ignore and deny the fact that we have creaturely constraints. We are limited in what we have. We devote our time to this. And so the writer of Ecclesiastes addresses that directly and says, you need to deal with these things, because as soon as we accept them, then we can actually start living. So there's 3 things I want to highlight this morning from here, and we'll get to a lot of different things as we go through the study. But the first thing is this. Look at verse 2. Vanity of vanities, he says, the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. This is what he said. Life is short. Life is short. So when he says the word vanity here, sometimes biblical writers have interpreted this and they put the word meaningless. I don't know what Bible passage you're reading from, what version you're reading from, but at the same time, when we look at it, it says the word meaningless, then what it means is that we are being led astray, because that's not the word for translated from vanity. The word vanity means mist. It means a breath. It means a vapor. Similar to what the writer of James would tell us, where he tells us that life is a mist. We're here today, and then all of a sudden we're gone tomorrow. If you've ever blown out a candle, you know in a moment the candle that's lit is gone forever. It's there, and all of a sudden it's just snuffed out. And so I think that we would wrongly take this word here at the very beginning of vanity to mean that life is meaningless. Life is clearly not meaningless. And the writer of Ecclesiastes throughout will go to prove that to great effect. That life is not meaningless. The experiences we have in life are not meaningless. He's saying life is short. We're here 1 minute, and we're gone the next. And so the older I get, I know that the days go by faster and faster. It feels as if it's just kind of going faster and faster. We know that time is not speeding up. It's not as if, the day's 24 hours is going faster. It just seems that as if I'm getting older, the way I experience life is that it's going faster and life is shorter. And I think it's because of this. Life is a vapor. Here 1 minute and gone the next. So we look at what he's saying. This is how he begins. Life is not meaningless. Life is a vapor. So how is accepting that limitation? Because every single one of us, every single one that's watching and listening to this, none of us can escape the vanity of life, the vapor of life. So how then does accepting this help us to start living? What it means is this, that we need to start living backwards. So we all know that life is a vapor, it's a mist. We're never going to be here forever. We go there, we know that is how it is. And what it means is we live backwards, and what it means is it gives actually meaning to today. If I can accept the reality that my life is short and your life is short, what it does is it infuses this day with meaning. It doesn't empty it of meaning. It says today matters because tomorrow you may not be here. And there are some people we know in our world today that are really fearful of death. And we have all these things going around in the news about how many people are dying from the coronavirus. And it's scary, and we're faced all of a sudden with our mortality. And you can sometimes think, well, thinking about death is kind of this morbid thought. But actually, I think the Bible would tell us, and Ecclesiastes would tell us, that actually thinking about our death isn't morbid. It gives meaning. It gives purpose. It doesn't starve us of life. It actually gives us more life. So we have to accept this reality so we can understand that we don't have to live as if we're never going to be here forever. We can live as if heaven is actually our home. And as believers, we know that, right? We know that this world here is not where we're going to be forever. Heaven is our greatest endeavor, our home. And so we can prepare now by understanding that this place here, that where we live, is not supposed to do more or expect more from it. It's supposed to give us. Life is short. Second is this, verse 3. Look at verse 3. He says this, what does man gain by all the toil which he toils under the sun? Here I'll categorize it this way. I'll say it this way, that life is elusive. Life is elusive. So he says here, what does a man gain by all the toil? The word gain there is an important word in the verse because we think about something we gain. So if I think about what I'm gaining, it means that after I spend everything that I've got, I spend it all, then at the end I have something left over, right? I have a surplus. So that's what he says, what does man gain by all the toil? So what we're all expecting in life is that the harder we work, the more we put in, all the toil that we give, that at the end there's going to be some gain for us, some surplus that we can say, this is what I gained from it. Now, if you've ever, back on the beach there, where we were there before, if you've ever been on the beach and you built a sandcastle, right? And if maybe you did this when you were little, and our families go do that sometimes, you can spend literally hours building a sandcastle, right? Literally hours. And there's some people who spend elaborate time and competitions building sandcastles. And you know what happens at the end? We all know, right? The waves come up, it comes up, and it just wipes it away. There's nothing left, is there? There's no gain from it. All that hard work, all that was put into it, and there's nothing left. This is what life is like. Build, toil, work, hard, work. And at the end, in a moment, it's gone. It's gone. In generations from now, we will be forgotten. How many of us remember 2, 3, 4 generations that go before us? Anyone know the names of their great-great-grandparents? Or even their great-grandparents? Hopefully you know your grandparents' names. But usually we don't even know the generation that's right past our grandparents. We live, we die, and we're forgotten. All the work, all the toil is completely gone. So we think about that candle, right, that we blew out when life is short. And life is elusive. The candle goes out, and there's a mist that exists there for a little bit, right? It's there. It kind of exists. We can see it. You can smell it. But as soon as you try to grab it, you can't, right? It's gone. Put it in a jar. You can't get it. It is elusive. This is what life is like. We think I'm going to gain something from this world that we live in, and it's lost in a second. There's no surplus. And so there's this implied answer in verse 3. What does man gain by all the toil which he toils under the sun? It's implied, right? Nothing. It's elusive. When we can accept that life is elusive, something pretty important happens to us. This is what I think happens. You and I can stop pretending that this life is going to give us something and start accepting it as a gift. And there's a big difference there, isn't there? If I think I'm supposed to get something from this world, I'm supposed to get something from my life, then I will spend my time trying to get something that in the end is going to give me nothing. But when you and I can accept that it's elusive, it's short, it's not going to last long, it's elusive, I can't actually grab it, then we can say, well, I'm not supposed to actually gain anything from here. Life is a gift. Therefore, we can stop pretending as if we're supposed to get more from here. We're supposed to give us something that's never meant for us to be here. We can start living that the life we have in this world is a gift from God. And we're not supposed to gain from it. We can enjoy things. We can truly enjoy this season of our life. Because we're not supposed to gain from it, we see our daily life as a gift. Third is this. Look down at verses 4 through 11. I want you to pay attention to some of the words that are repeated over here. Because there's this repetitive nature. Verses 4 to 11, this is what we learn about life, that life is repetitive. So look at verses down 4 through 11. We're starting in verse 5, and you see there's kind of this threefold kind of poetic comparison. So you see in verse 5, he mentions the sun. In verse 6, he mentions the wind. And in verse 7, he mentions water, or the streams. And so what this poetic description you see, he says the sun rises, the sun rose this morning, and the sun goes down. The wind is blowing around the earth from the south down to the north. All around the world, the wind continues to blow. And then the water is running into the sea, and yet the sea never seems to get full, right? And so there's this constant kind of cyclical nature of creation that just keeps going. The sun rises, the sun sets, the wind blows, the waters are flowing. And what he does next then is he compares this then to our life. So look at the comparison. He compares sun, wind, and water. And now look at verse 8. The speech of man, a man cannot utter it. The eye, he says, now is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. And so what he's doing is he's comparing the cyclical patterns of nature to our cyclical lives. We can continue to talk. We always have words that can continue to be said. We can continue to hear things with our ears. We can continue to see things, but at the same time, it's cyclical. It's never satisfied. It just keeps going. The way that the sun goes up and down, the wind blows all around, the waters go. I can continue to talk. You can continue to see things. We can continue to hear things, but at the end of the day, we're never full. We're never satisfied. We can continue to have more. And so he does this kind of repetitive nature of creation. Seasons come and seasons go. And we're kind of stuck in that pattern, isn't it? I don't know about you, but sometimes I get bored of repetition. When things just kind of keep repeating over and over again, I get kind of bored. I need to keep things fresh. I need to do something different. Repetition is hard, isn't it? And at the same time, we always want things to stay the same. Think about that, right? We always want something new, and yet we long for things to stay the same. It's this warp and woof in our soul that says, I want something new, but don't change that. Life is repetitive, and it can be very frustrating, this maddening cycle for us. So then he comes to this extraordinary, kind of one of the most famous kind of verses in Ecclesiastes, verse 9. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And here it is, there's nothing new under the sun. How are we supposed to understand that? Does that mean there'll never be new inventions? Can't mean that, right? Does that mean no one in the future from now is going to come up with something new? No, because we know here, we're sitting here today, and we have new inventions like technology and things that weren't at the time there. So he said, how can the writer say there's nothing new under the sun? What does he actually mean by that? Here's what I think he means. I think what he means is this, that mankind's desire for all of eternity, from then and for our life now, will be to want to break this repetitive cycle. The nothing new under the sun means that we long for something to break the cycle, that life is short. Life is repetitive, and life is elusive. So there's nothing new under the sun, meaning I want to break out of that. So think about it this way. Space exploration, so to speak, right? There's always going to be this desire to explore more. So as soon as we get to one part of the universe, we want to get to the next part of the universe. As soon as new technology wants to get developed, we want to develop better technology or different technology. So there's this desire in us. Not to say there's nothing new under the sun, but say the desire, what's not new, is the desire to break out of the cycle. To live as if life is going to be forever. To live as if it's not elusive. To live as if I can do something that's going to break out of this. And that is a maddening cycle for us, isn't it? So when he says nothing new under the sun. But friends, when we can accept this, that life is repetitive, and we can live kind of within our skin with that. We can live with the fact that life is repetitive. Here's what we can do. You and I can all of a sudden gain a perspective that's bigger and better than ours. We can break out of that cycle only by accepting the fact that we are in the cycle. And then therefore we can all of a sudden realize that God's perspective on things is totally different than ours. I hope these two things are a little helpful for us as we transition into a new world for us, right? We need to accept our limitations. Life is short. Life is elusive. Life is repetitive. These constant creature constraints. And then those that are the key to living well. We can stop pretending that this here is our home. And actually our home is in heaven. We can stop pretending that life is a game. And instead life is a gift. We can stop pretending that we can break the cycle and gain a perspective on life. So here's what I want you all that are here with me today and those that are listening online is this. I want you to take a minute to just reflect. what I want you to reflect on is not just what's happening, because none of us can control what's happening. None of us can change the decisions that are going to be made for us. But here's what we can do. We can understand why it's happening. And we can understand what it's revealing about what's in our hearts. What's deep inside, that as we go through this together, we can say, what is this revealing about what's inside of my heart? Am I trying to live as if this world is going to give me more than what it's designed to give me? Am I trying to live as if I'm going to live here forever? Or am I trying to live as if there's something that's going to break out of this cycle? Reflect on this. Ask those questions, those deeper questions. When we're stripped away from everything, to slow down and to be still. What remains in our hearts? And this is what I want you to do next. I want you to rejoice. Might sound like a strange thing, right? But I want you to rejoice not in circumstances. I want you to rejoice in your Savior. This is what Jesus said, John 14:6. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through me. That life that Jesus was talking about, he says, I am the life, extends beyond this present moment. It extends beyond life on this earth, and it stretches into eternity. So we can rejoice no matter what circumstances we face, whether it is there's decisions made for this, a pandemic that happens now, or whatever things happen down the road in the future. We can rejoice not in circumstances, but that Jesus says, I will give you life. And we have his life. We know we have hope for eternity. And so Ecclesiastes is going to help us gain that perspective. We have to go through the process that he's going to get us there. Rapid changes that we're facing. Friends, they rattle us, don't they? But at the same time, we can be gloriously rattled in order to find real hope in this world. Even as we go through these things, we can live well. Let me pray for us, and the band will come up and continue to lead us in a few songs as we close out the day. Let's pray together. Father in heaven, we thank you for the book of Ecclesiastes. We know that in so many ways we have a lot to learn. The lessons are not difficult to understand cognitively. They're sometimes difficult for us to understand emotionally and experientially. And so I pray for us this week as we just rest in your sovereignty, that we would accept the limitations that you've put on us, understanding that you are an unlimited God, and that your perspective on things is so much greater and bigger than any of ours. Thank you this morning that we can be together to worship through hearing your word, through singing together. I pray for our families and those that are watching and listening in other places, Lord, that you would continue to draw us closer to you in this time. Help us to understand what you're doing and how you're speaking to us today. We love you. We thank you for the freedoms that we have to worship you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in love to those around me. Sing, I will build. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not sing it out. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you. I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Oh, I will build my life on your love. It is a firm foundation. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. We put our trust in you.
No pen and quill, no scribe in perfect skill, with flawless words could capture all you are. No lofty thought, no scholar of this world could grasp an inch of such infinity. Though we cannot comprehend such a mystery, just a glimpse of you revealed is compelling us to sing. Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, and worthy, worthy is your name. All of heaven You'll lead us home, riding on the clouds, where we will stand and sing forevermore. The honor and the praise, glory in the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Worthy is your name. All heaven, Lord, that delivered every rising. Worthy is your name. Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Worthy is your name. All heaven, rejoice that universe ever crying. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name. You're worthy, and worthy is your name.
I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken, 'cause I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Amen. God perhaps may be rattling us to show us where our hope lies. I know for me this past week it's been revealing to me where I've set my hope, whether it's on sports being available, or finances being secure, or just my routine being normal. And so my hope for me and for us and for our church is that we will set our hope in God and His character and His word. We will turn to Him when our fear, when our anxiety, when our frustration, whatever it is, we will turn our eyes to Him and trust that He is in control, He is sovereign, that He knows what He's doing. He's seated on His throne. He's not pacing. He's not pacing up in heaven. He's seated. So we love you, church. We'll see you next week, some way, somehow. Let us know that you're watching. See you soon.